In this video, I am going to be going over how you actually work to create and embed a MailChimp form into your final project website. Because if you recall in reading through the instructions, it talks about we are not going to be creating a form on our own. We're going to be using MailChimp, which will allow us then to, in essence, create a list and then send out emails. This is all part of the funnel plan. The idea would be that they would be coming from one of your marketing channels, coming to your landing page that would then take them to the subscribe or sign up page, depending on what you call it. And that sign up page then would be using MailChimp. And that's how we would be able to track that they made it all the way through the funnel. The first thing we need to do is to actually go out to MailChimp. And here we are out at MailChimp. As you can see, I've already logged in, and now we're ready to create our form. And to do that, we need to navigate over to the Audience tab on the left-hand side. That's, if you mouse over, you can see what each of these menu items are. So I'm going to select Audience. This brings me to the Audience page, but more importantly, it also brings up this yellow bar with additional menu items. I'm going to select Sign Up Forms. From here, you can see I have a number of options, and the two that we are going to be paying attention to are Form Builder and Embedded Forms. The first thing that we need to do is actually create our form. So we are going to go into Form Builder. In the Form Builder, we can choose from any number of kind of default sort of forms. It automatically pops up to Sign Up Form, which is exactly where we need it to be. I'm just going to scroll down and see what the default form looks like. As you can see, there are a few things in here that I might not want, and I need to compare them to my prototype for my sign up page. So you can see here we have an email address, first name, last name, phone number, and an address. And the phone number and address had this little blue background that says they are hidden. You can see by the list over here that it is also hidden. Well, I don't need all of these things if we look at my prototype. Here is my prototype. I'm asking for a first name, last name, an email address, and a phone number. So those fields are good, but then I want to add three more things. I want to have a location of the sighting, since I'm having them report a Sasquatch sighting, the date that they made the sighting, and then some sort of a text box. So I need to add these three things into this form and remove the address. So we want the phone number to appear, and it is currently set to hidden. So what we need to do is go over here and click Visible, and then Save Field. Then Address, when we click on that, we make sure that it says address over here. You can either click the little subtract button down here or click delete here. Either way, it's going to ask you to type in delete to make sure you don't accidentally delete something that you really want to keep. And now we're ready to add in new fields. And I said I needed a location of the sighting, so that's probably just a text field. So I'm going to simply click on that, and it'll show up down here. It says Untitled. If I click on this, you can see up in field settings, it says Untitled, and this is where I can put my descriptor. So this becomes location of sighting. I leave this alone because this is something that's important to MailChimp itself. I don't need to do anything else here except click Save Field. Now I have my location of sighting. The other thing I needed to put in here was a date. So if I go next to where it says Field Settings, I can go back to Add a Field and scroll down. There is Date, so I can add that. And just like before, I can update the descriptor, and this would be date of sighting. I again want this to be visible, and so I'm just going to save this field. The last thing I need to add is my text box. And one of the things I discovered in here is there isn't a large description field like for a comment. So I'm going to have to use this standard text box. So I will just simply add that, and then I need to give it a title. And it's going to be provide a brief description. Then I will leave everything else alone and click Save. This is the first step. So now we have added fields we need, we deleted fields that we didn't, and we've saved everything. I've inserted this update to MailChimp into this video, and so you're going to notice a little difference in the menu on the left-hand side. We need to go back to sign up forms, where we came from, and now we're going to go into embedded forms. This is where we go to actually generate the code that we can copy and paste into our website. So you'll notice that this form doesn't look anything like the form that we just created. We need to do a few things to bring it up to speed and to get those fields back. All of these items are going to be found down the left-hand side. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up this form fields. And you can see here are all the rest of my fields, but MailChimp has turned them off. I am just going to go next to each one of the fields and I am going to turn them on, and this should put them in location the way I created in the original form builder. So now I have this part set up. It looks like I want it to, so I'm going to click this little back arrow. The next thing I'm going to do is go into settings. And there's a few different things that we can take care of here. First of all, this one says subscribe at the top. I don't want mine to say subscribe because I've already got some other text that I have included on my web page that I am creating separately. So I'm going to turn this off just by clicking this little slider, and notice it goes away. I'm not going to worry so much about this width in pixels because that we can control when we start handling our own CSS. Now, this part, there are a couple of different ways in which we can handle it. First, by default, there is some CSS that is associated with it, and your form will basically look like you see here. It will have these kind of gray outlines on the boxes. It will have the white background. The subscribe button will be this light gray color. Because we are going to be making this form look like it is part of our website, one of the easiest ways to do this is to simply go over to this item over here that says remove CSS styles and turn that on. Notice how this drastically changes. Well, this means it's taken all the CSS out and we can control it on our website. The other advantage of doing it this way is it also disables all JavaScript. This is important because if you remember to our assignment, we are looking to create the landing page that takes us to the sign up page that takes us to our custom thank you page. If we leave the JavaScript installed, what MailChimp likes to do is it just generates a little JavaScript message once the form has been submitted that says, thank you for submitting your request. We don't want it to do that. So by removing CSS, it's enabling us to really customize our styles, and it disables that JavaScript piece. However, if you think that this particular look actually works within your site and you might not have a lot of things to adjust, then maybe leaving the CSS on is good, but you're still going to want to disable that JavaScript. And so now to do that, we go down to this button and click Disable JavaScript. It's not going to look any different here, but it's going to allow us to do some things when we get to being able to forward to that thank you page. Now we think we are ready to go. In my case, I actually want to remove all CSS, so I'm going to do that. When you are ready, then click Continue in the upper right. Then all of your code has been generated. This entire block of code will need to go into your website. So what I'm going to do is click Copy Code, and then I'm ready to move it into my web page. Okay, I am in my Dreamweaver file where I have this set up. And actually, before I do this, I'm just going to show you what my page looks like. So we're going to go and do a preview in Google Chrome. Here is my page so far. I have my navigation. I have the report a sighting today with the brief amount of information I wanted, and I had the other information that I wanted to include on this page. It's all already there. So all I need to do is add my form. So I'm going to go do that. So let's go to Dreamweaver. And remember, I copied all of that information. So where it needs to go, in my case, is in the section. There's that report a citing, and then there's the provide the information, and here's my closing section tag. So it actually needs to go in between here. I'm just going to give it a lot of space just so that I can see it, and you're going to see what all this code looks like. So I'm going to, and here we go. Notice that it has a comment at the beginning that says begin MailChimp sign up form, and if we keep scrolling, yes, it pulled in all of this code. We have end embed sign up. So we know exactly where the stuff is that's related to MailChimp. So if we look at what this page looks like right now, I'm going to click save, and we're going to go view it in our browser. Here is what it looked like, of course, prior to our adding our form. I'm going to click refresh. And this is what the new form looks like. It's not too bad. I pulled it in without any styles attached to it, so it automatically just kind of drops it in. But it's going to pull some of like my default text and stuff. But I want to get this so it's spaced out, it's a little bit prettier, and so that it matches my prototype. So again, just as a reminder, here is my prototype. I have all these nice fields that are all the same length, and I have my text is bold, and I'm not going to worry about the size of that text box because that is kind of a limitation in working with MailChimp. And this button is now styled. So the second part of this video is going to be working with our CSS to make sure that the elements that we want are styled the way we need. The first thing I am going to do is I am going to get the little asterisk that shows up saying that it's a required field. I want that to be red. And I know that there is some text in here that shows it. And here it is. It says span class equals asterisk. So it's already got a class style for us. I am going to go into my style sheet all the way at the bottom, and I am going to put in a comment here that just indicates that this is where all of my MailChimp styles are going to be. Then that first one is a class style, and it was called asterisk, and there it is. All I want to do is make it red, so I'm going to change my color. So if I save this, and I take a look out in my browser now, it's already refreshed, and here is that little asterisk that indicates required and indicates required. The other thing I want to do is underneath that little where it says indicates required, I want to put some space between that and where the actual fields start to show up. So let's go take a look and see what that code is so I know the type of styles I need. What I'm looking for is right here. So it says class indicates required. So I know that this is one of the things that I need to address. So let's go create a style for that. And the other thing, if we look at this page, is I know I want to put some space between each of these fields too, because they're all crunched together. So we're going to do a group style. The other thing that we need is this MC field group, because you'll see that there's a div that goes around the label that shows up. So there it says email address and the input field for our form. So I'm going to go create a group style for the class indicates required, comma, and for the class MC field group. And all I'm going to do here is I am going to put in a margin bottom, and I'm going to do 12 pixels. There's no magic number there. So if I save this and then now look at my browser, I can see there's that red for my asterisk, and look at all the nice little space I have in between. Now what I want to do is I am going to make it so that all of the text that shows up in front of those input fields is going to be aligned to the right, that there's some space between the text and the actual input field, and that there's a nice block so that it lines up because right now it is kind of jagged. So we kind of have this little jagged thing. I want it to be nice and up and down. So I need to again figure out what is controlling each of those, and that would be our label. But I also want to be specific in case I have a form anywhere else on my website. So I'm going to use this MC field group and label to create the complex style or descendant selector. So let's create that. And that is MC field group again, and then label. And this will affect all of those labels in our field. So what I want to do is I'm going to give it a font weight of bold. I am going to give it a margin right because I want that space between the text and the actual input field, and we're going to say 20 pixels. I am going to give it a width so that all of them are the same width, and I'm just going to say 120 pixels. I'm hoping that that's wide enough. I think it should be. Then I want all my text to align to the right so it forms a nice, pretty kind of line. And in order to get this to show up as kind of that block, we need to put in display inline block. And this one should be familiar from when we have done the ULLI, the lists for navigations to make them go across. So I'm going to save this and we're going to take a look at what we've got. My form is looking so much better now because now we have space in between these, and look at how these blocks are all nice and lined up. Our text is lined up along the right hand side here. We have a weird little issue with this date of citing, so we need to investigate that because I want it up next to it just like the rest of these fields. Let's go see what is controlling these little date fields. I'm going back into my source code and I am looking for date. And here we have date of citing. Well, that's the label. That isn't the problem. But if I look below this, I have this div here that says class date field. And if I kind of look through here, that says month field, day field, and year field. So that's the area I want to affect. And in this case, then I can just do this by affecting this class style called date field. Let's go back to our style sheet and add another style. And this is a class and it's called date field. And I just want to add that display inline block to it as well and hope that that brings it up where it needs to like the others. So I'm going to save that and we're going to take a peek. Here it is. Oh, isn't that pretty? It went all nice and across. Now look how nice our form looks. The last thing we have is just to change this button so that it's green. That's all we really need to do. And this form is going to be in pretty good shape in looking like our prototype. Notice how close they look. This is looking really good. So we are going to finish this up and look for this button. Going back to my source code, and I keep scrolling down because I know the button's at the bottom of this, and I am looking for something that says submit. Here it is. We have div class clear. I don't have to worry about that, but I'm looking at input. So this right here is our button. Value is what shows up. And in my case, I don't actually say subscribe because I'm trying to get them to report a citing. So instead of subscribe, I'm going to change this to say submit your citing. The name, I'm not going to worry about. This ID, I don't touch any of this. This type has to remain as submit. But what I am paying attention to is that there is this class style called button. I might have used button somewhere else in my website, so I don't want to mess that up. So what I'm also going to do is reference the ID style that this is part of, and it is in this big div here called MC underscore embed underscore sign up. Let's go into our style sheet and call up these things. We're going to make another one of these complex styles. It is in the MC embed sign up. So that one is going to be our first one. And then we're looking for the class style called button. And then we need to do a bunch of things to it. Now this all really depends on what your own website looks like. But in mine, I know I have a border radius because I want it to be a little bit rounded. So we do some 5 pixels. I'm going to do a border color that's a dark green. I'm going to give it a background, but this background is going to be a gradient, and I need to put in my colors. That should be looking pretty good. I need to give it a border. Oh, I see I have border color and border, so let's just fix that. So I don't want just border color, I want the whole border. So we're gonna do border. So in addition, remember we need 3 elements whenever we do a border. I'm gonna make it 2 pixels and solid, and then of course that color of that dark green. So we fixed that, that looks pretty now. Then we're gonna add some padding so that the text isn't smushed right up next to the edge of the button color. So I'm gonna do 8 pixels and 12 pixels. And we want to be able to read our text because it by default is black. So we're going to change that so that it is kind of the light beige color that matches everything else in our site. I want this to be all uppercase. And I want to put a margin in there on the top and bottom just so it's not butting right up next to those fields. And I don't need anything on the right or left. So let's go take a look and see what we are looking like now. Here it is. Isn't that lovely? If we compare that to our prototype, we are looking beautiful. We have this nice little rounded corner button. It's got the gradient, the uppercase text, and we have this nice and lined up text here with all of our fields. Is it exact? No, but is it really darn close? Yes. This is the first part of what we are working on. In the next video, we are going to go over how do you get your visitor when they click that submit your citing to get over to your custom thank you page.